So, listen up. We're recording this. So, you got to be able to recognize the fact that you can do factor by grouping. Okay? So, you can tell you can do factor by grouping because, yes, if I take an x squared out, what do I have left? Right? Take an x squared out, I have x minus 3 left. And obviously, I can get x minus 3 out of the last two factors. So, that's how we're going to do factor by grouping for this kind. The hardest part of this section is that you have to recognize you can do factor by grouping right here, right? So you can still use your calculator, get a 0, and figure it out by doing synthetic division. It's just easier to do factor by grouping. So we take an x squared out. What do I have left in the first fraction? Right here, right? X minus 3, and then plus 1. And then x minus 3 again. Then you make a parenthesis out of the things in front of each parenthesis, x squared plus 1. Set that equal to 0. Solve for x. Set x minus 3 equal to 0. Solve for x. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides over here. Add 3 to both sides over here. So we get x squared equals negative 1. Here we get x equals 3. How do I solve for x on the first? Square root both sides. And what's my answer? Plus or minus I. So x equals plus or minus I and 3. So there are the 3 answers, right? We start with the cubic, you got to have 3 answers. Now, sometimes you do problems. There's one on the homework where the graph comes up at negative 1 and goes right back down, so it bounces at negative 1. So for that answer, you're going to write negative 1 twice if it bounces, because that happens. Are we good on this? Okay. Can we do factor by grouping here? Yeah. Because if we take x squared out of the first one, we have x plus 1 left. So what do I have to factor then out of the next two? 4. So I take a 4 out. I like to write the positive 4 because it helps me to remember to put plus 4 right there. And then I have x plus 1 left. So what's one of the, yep. So x cubed divided by x squared is x. X squared divided by x squared is 1. Then I make a parenthesis out of x squared plus 4. I'm just going to go ahead and set it equal to 0 though. And then I also do x plus 1 equals 0. So here I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Over here, subtract 1 from both sides. I get x equals negative 1. Over here, I get x squared equals negative 4. What do I do now under it? Square root. What do I have to write right here? Plus or minus. Then square root of negative 4 breaks into square root of 4 and square root of negative 1. So I get 2i right there, plus or minus. Okay? Some of you guys still write the square root. You take square root of 4 and you write square root of 2 right here. If you get confused about that ever, just put in square root of 4 into your calculator. You'll see you just get regular old 2, so you're not going to write square root of 2. Okay? So plus or minus 2i and negative 1. So factor by grouping. You always want to look to see if you start with a quartic, next level down after you do synthetic once, you may have where you can do factor by grouping, and you should do that because it's easier. How would you approach this problem? So this is 22 from your homework last night. How would you approach this problem? What can you factor out right away? X. So again, you can put it in your calculator. But actually, this one won't work if you put it in your calculator because you only have 1 0. What's the 1 0 from this? You should already be able to tell. Because whatever we factor out, it's going to be like this. I have x squared minus 3x minus 9 left. This is all equals 0 because we're getting the zeros. So x equals 0. So if you do synthetic division with 0, nothing happens. So you can't do synthetic. You have to factor this one. So our first 0 is x equals 0. And then your friend of mine, the old quadratic. May as well just get used to grinding on the quadratic because you're going to be doing lots of it. Right? So negative 3 is positive 3. 2 times 1 is 2. Plus or minus negative 3 squared is 9. Minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 9. All over 2. So we still have that x equals 0. So underneath the square root, we get 45. So x equals 0, 3 halves, plus or minus, square root, 45 over 2. What's the biggest factor? Biggest factor of 45. You can evenly square root. 95. So square root of 45 breaks into square root of 9, square root of 5. So you get 3 times square root of 5. So final answer, x equals 0. That's one of 3 answers. And then 3 halves plus or minus 3 times square root of 5 over 2. Fine stuff. Okay? So I know I'm going fast, so we're just going over homework, and I want to try to give you time to work on the worksheet, because it's long. It's only 11 problems, but this kind of stuff happens, so it takes a while. Are we good on this? I can put it back up if somebody needs that. So we're going to throw this into the y equals to the graphing calculator, which I have right there. Okay? You don't have to do it. We're just looking at the zeros. So remember, we're at x to the 4th right here. So I should have 4 answers. If I look at the graph, I've got negative 2 and positive 2. So that means I have 2 real answers. I should have 2 imaginary answers. So if you see this kind of thing and you have x to the 4th, right before you even begin the problem, you know you have to do quadratic formula. Isn't that fun? Right? Because you're going to have 2 imaginary ones. You could work out factor by grouping 2 and you could get imaginary, but... So let's use positive 2 first. So we have 1, 3, 1, negative 12, and negative 20. Yep, right here. Positive 2. Okay? It's, oh, I want... Yeah. Yeah, when you have x to the 4th, you're going to have to always use calculator. There's another way I could have taught you how to do it, but it irritates me so much. And if it irritates me a ton, you guys are going to, like, shoot me. So, I don't want to die. Okay, bring the 1 down. 2 times 1 is 2. I know. 3 plus 2 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 1. 11, 2 times 11, 22, 22 minus 12, 10, 2 times 10, 20. Remember, when you do synthetic with these things, you never have a remainder. So if you get a remainder, try to find your stupid mistake. AJ?
When you get the original tools
from the graph. Right? Remember, I saw some of you guys in helping people do this stuff today. You use the number as it appears on the graph, right? So don't switch the sign, right? You use the actual number, so that's 2 and negative 2. Okay, do not switch the sign. Okay, so now we're going to do negative 2. So actually, first, if we look at this thing, plus 5x squared, plus 11x, plus 10, is factor by grouping going to work? Because you can't factor anything out of 11 and 10, right, except the 1. And I'm not going to end up with 11 and 10 here. So that's how you know factor by grouping does not work. So I already used the positive 2. Now I have to use the negative 2. So 1, 5, 11, and 10. First thing we do is bring the 1 down. Negative 2 times 1, negative 2, 3. Negative 2 times 3, negative 6. 11 minus 6 is 5. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. No remainder. Okay, so we're always going down by 1 degree each time we do synthetic. So we start this time at x squared plus 3x plus 5. Is there any factor of 5 that can add to 3? 5 and 1 can't get to 3. So, quadratic formula. So, negative 3 over 2 plus or minus square root of 9 minus 4 times 1 times 5 over 2. So 9 minus 20 is negative 11. So negative 3 halves plus or minus. So this equals square root of negative 11, which breaks apart into square root of negative 1, square root of 11. So I square root 11. So, she should have grabbed the worksheet. Over 2. Too bad. Yeah, you were, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. So, I don't know why I wrote 3 there, number 11. Oh boy, that's not helpful. I square root 11 over 2. What's my other answer? Negative 2 and positive 2. So x equals plus or minus 2 from the graph, and that's it. Okay, last one. Go ahead. It is? Yeah, that's it. So that's 2 answers, right? And then negative 3 halves plus I squared root of 11 over 2. Third answer, negative 3 halves minus I times square root of 11 over 2. Fourth answer. Okay, this one. When it's to the 4th squared and then no x, you always want to look to see if you can factor it like regular. So if you have positive 8 and negative 6, factors of 8 are 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. Can I get to negative 6? 2 and 4 both have to be negative. Okay? So you know to do this when you have a 4, a 2 as the exponent, and no x here. The only thing that happens is you have x squared at the beginning of the parenthesis as opposed to just x. Then just set each one equal to 0 and solve for x. Okay, so x squared minus 2 equals 0. Solve for x. X squared minus 4 equals 0. Solve for x. So add 2, add 4. So we get x squared equals 2. X squared equals 4. And then just square root. So I get x equals plus or minus square root 2 and plus or minus 2. So how many real versus how many imaginary answers did we get? How many real answers? 2. How many imaginary? No. How many real answers? None. So how many real answers? Because this doesn't have an I, right? That's what makes it imaginary, because of the I. So this is real. Square root of 2 is 1.4. So it's just plus or minus 1.4. That's plus or minus 2. So don't think just because it's the square root that it is imaginary. I realized that third period today, that some people are thinking that is imaginary. It has an I if it's imaginary. That's the only reason. Any questions on that? So again, when it's to the 4 squared and that, if it has I, negative square root will be imaginary. Is that what you just said? Yeah, good. All right, so I got a worksheet. The problems are on the board there. Let me just stop this thing.